Tambridge House Secondary School in West Sussex. Open only to vulnerable pupils and children of key workers, it's much busier than during the first lockdown, with around 100 students attending. Last Monday, a day after Boris Johnson said that schools were safe, he ordered them to close and also announced that exams would be cancelled. For head teacher Jules White, it's been a constant battle to keep up.
It's been very difficult. I think everyone and every head teacher has sympathy for the government and the Department for Education in these times of a pandemic, but the mixed messaging, the inconsistent messaging, change after change, U-turn after U-turn has been very, very difficult to deal with. Head teachers, we really know what we're doing. We want our schools to be open where we can. We want to look after vulnerable children. We want to allow the parents of critical workers, they need to work as well. But the goalposts, they seem to change every 5 minutes. We waste time, resource and energy. It's so difficult to manage. And most of all, children and parents are not getting a consistent message either.
I mean, I guess if you had more notice, then you could have invested more in online learning, made sure that the laptops were there, made sure that the teachers were equipped to provide it. And as a result, you're having to scramble.
That's absolutely right. If you look at just before Christmas, there was the threat of legal action about schools who were thinking about closing because of public health risks. Then over the Christmas, myself and other head teachers, we really busted a gut to try and put in place mass testing plans, which were pretty flawed in the first place. Then just before we go back, we then have to change and move towards children not coming in and online learning. Now at the moment, just in the last week, the Secretary of State has said we're going to trust teachers on exam grades, but at the same time talks about having to use Ofsted to come and check up what we're doing. It's really just bewildering and almost impossible to manage. We know our children, we know our families, and if we're actually trusted to deliver, we will do. We really understand that there is a crisis upon us, and we have to do everything we can to make sure our schools are open when it's safe to do so.
Another big call by the government this week was the decision to cancel exams. I was quite interested in the survey results. It shows that overwhelmingly the teachers think that it's right to cancel exams, but actually some comprehensive contingency plans should be in place already. So we should know what the replacement assessment should be. Does that surprise you?
We've been asking for contingency plans and a plan B for some time, even before this latest variant came into place. There was a real risk that children were missing too much time in school to have a fair go at a national exam programme. Yet here we are, no plans have been announced, going to consultation again. We all feel that this should have been in place. It is a difficult problem. I think at the root of things, teachers will have to be trusted to give fair grades for all of the exams. Hopefully there can be some sort of external checking or moderation. That may be a way forward to give further confidence to the system. But again, we need to be consulted with, we need to be listened to, we actually know what we're doing, and we really hope the DfE and Ofqual take note of that and we avoid the crisis and the fiasco of last summer.
The thing is, everyone wants to trust teachers, of course, but at the same time, you can't help but think that if teachers have complete control over what grades are given, we're going to see some pretty high grades being given out.
Yes, I think last year we saw some grade inflation. I think we have to be realistic about that. I also think we have to be realistic that no system is going to be perfect. We're in the middle of a pandemic, but teachers will use proper professional judgment. Perhaps we can use some form of online testing or a window of external assessment, which is fair to all students, much more reduced. That might be a reference point. Again, we will do our absolute best to treat every child fairly. And we don't actually want to just give away grades. That's not what we're in the job for. We want to make sure that every child, whether they're in search of a college place, a university place, an apprenticeship, is given the opportunity to do so in a fair way.
A survey of 1,000 head teachers carried out by campaign group Worth Less and shared with Sophie Ridge on Sunday found that 52% have no confidence in the Department for Education's decision-making and 41% have hardly any. Only 6% are fairly confident and just 1% feel confident. 91% of head teachers said that the government was right to cancel all assessments for summer 2021. Only 9% said that was the wrong decision. But 92% of heads said that comprehensive contingency plans for alternative grading systems should already have been set out by the Department for Education. Simon Liebes, head of the exams body Ofqual, has been in the job just 1 week. Quite a baptism of fire.
There is a plan B. My officials and the department spent quite a lot of time last year working that out in detail. But I think one's got to recognise that it's a sort of framework in a sense, because Plan B, as it's implemented in January, is not going to be the same as Plan B if it's implemented because exams are cancelled in May. And I think the other thing to recognise is that at the end of the day, people need to feel that the results are fair. We need to have a proper opportunity to consult with parents, with students, with teachers, with schools, with school organisations.
How can you make sure whatever replaces the exams is fair and doesn't discriminate against people from less advantaged backgrounds?
It would be idle to pretend that's a straightforward challenge. Clearly, any sort of arrangements do need to take account of the fact that we've got a very wide range of learning experiences that have to be assessed and evaluated. I think there's going to be a big challenge in terms of making sure that the teacher-assessed grades, the methods we use encompass that range of learning, but at the same time, I think they have to reflect actual achievement and actual learning. Some people have had an absolutely appalling experience and lost masses of learning. Others have virtually been unimpacted.
Have you got any ideas for how to make a fair assessment system?
It's already been made clear that the system is going to be based on teacher assessment. The question then is how you make sure that teacher assessment is relatively consistent across the school network. You've got to deal with the reality that there are perverse incentives. There's quite a big grade inflation last year. There's lots of potential for an even bigger grade inflation this year.
The reality is that exams aren't always fair. Some pupils will have had a better education than others. Some children will have personal circumstances that mean they do less well at school. But like with so many other things, the pandemic is taking existing problems and exacerbating them.
The Prime Minister hopes to reopen schools after the February half-term. That is now looking optimistic. On current evidence, 2021 looks to be just as disruptive as the year before.
My piece on schools there. Well, in response, the Department for Education has sent us a statement, and this is it. We know this is a challenging time for schools and pupils, and that's why we're launching a consultation with Ofqual next week on the best options for alternatives to exams to ensure every young person gets a fair grade for their work. Grades will be based on teacher assessment, and support will be provided to ensure grades are awarded fairly and consistently. Every major public health decision we've taken has been guided by the best scientific and medical advice, and we are working to ensure the best possible outcome for schools and pupils.